Is far too large for us to be the only intelligent species.
We have materials from the Roswell UFO crash.
Will this test confirm the metal is not of Earth? If the aliens come for you today, are you ready?
Roswell, Mysteries Decoded. Special presentation Thursday, January 10th on the CW.
While our government's official position is not to speculate on this subject, we can choose to let our minds explore other possibilities, to use our imaginations. For if we consider that astroscientists agree on one point, that the possibility of life elsewhere is not only quite probable, some feel it is there without a doubt. Let us suppose then that these objects are real space vehicles, extraterrestrial in origin, and not an illusion of the mind.
There's nothing to hide. There's nothing to hide at all.
What's up, guys? Happy World UFO Day to all of you saucer knots out there. Saucer knots? UFO knots? What are we calling ourselves these days? I like UFO knots. Let's go with that. Welcome to a very special kind of impromptu live stream that we're doing tonight. Now, this is going to be fun. It is the week anniversary of the Roswell UFO crash back in 1947. And man, what a week and a half it's been in ufology. With the Wall Street Journal, we had the New York Times came out with an article this morning, which was pretty interesting. I don't know if you guys had a chance to read that. We will be discussing it on the live stream this upcoming Sunday. I also had the opportunity to speak with one of the authors of the Wall Street Journal 2-part series. And it was an enlightening experience. I will leave it at that for now. Hint, hint. That being said, it is World UFO Day, so I thought it'd be pretty cool, guys, to revisit something that I had the incredible opportunity to do, many years ago now at this point. I had the amazing opportunity to be a part of a television series numerous times, but this was the first time, a show called Mysteries Decoded. This originally aired on the CW network in the United States. It's gone on to be aired in Japan, in the UK as well, from what I'm told. And someone else in the chat said that they actually saw it in Iceland, of all places. So it's out there. It's out there. Just search for Mysteries Decoded and see if it's on your streaming platforms in your region. But that being said, it's a pretty fun story behind how Roswell Mysteries Decoded, which we're going to watch tonight. Let's pray this works and we don't get copyright stricken or taken down immediately. Um, but yeah, basically what this boils down to is the CW network in the US, they came out with a reboot of the Roswell television show. Do you guys remember that show back in the day? It was like kind of like a teen drama, and it was about Roswell, where the aliens crashed and assimilated into human form and became members of the town of Roswell. They'd fall in love. They'd have all these different, things that happen in these CW teen drama things. It was fiction. It was fiction, but based on the actual Roswell event, at least, the crash part of it. And what happened when that show was about to come out is the CW contacted me and said, "Hey, we know that you're a UFO guy. We've been following your work tangentially for a while now, your podcast, your books, blah, blah, blah." And the people at the CW said, "What we want to do is create a 1 hour special, a nonfiction, or I guess non-scripted 1 hour special about the actual Roswell UFO crash." And I said, "Cool. I think that's a great idea. I'd be happy to help out with any research or put you guys in touch with people who might be able to help with that." And they were like, "No, we want you to do it." And I was just like, "What? Okay." And the rest is kind of history. They wanted to bring a younger audience who watched this network, the CW. They wanted to show them what the actual Roswell UFO incident was all about. So they sent me and an investigative partner, Jennifer Marshall, who was my co-investigator. She's a Navy veteran. They sent us out to do a Roswell UFO investigation. And I will tell you this, some of the stuff you're going to see tonight was pretty compelling, pretty interesting. When I first got involved, I thought, what the hell could I possibly contribute to this mystery that's been going on for almost 60 years at this point? And lo and behold, we were able to get our hands literally on what we considered new evidence with the Roswell UFO incident. I had the amazing opportunity to meet some people who you will see in the show as well, and I learned a lot. So what I thought we would do tonight is a watch along. We're going to watch the 1 hour special. Now, the 1 hour special was so well received on the CW network. It was one of their highest rated and viewed shows ever. And it was also their first ever attempt at a non-scripted television show. And after this Roswell show aired, they bought an entire series from it. That's how well it was received and how well they thought we did with this investigation. Now, that has very little to do with me. It has everything to do with my co-investigative partner, the people we interviewed, the people we spoke to, our researchers. We had a whole team of researchers on the show as well, behind the scenes, some of which you will see in this episode as well. And yeah, they ended up buying the series Mysteries Decoded, which would go on to be hosted by Jennifer Marshall, my co-investigative partner. But whenever UFOs came up, I was the first one she called. So I think I was on 4 episodes of the show. I was deeply honored. It was so much fun, eye-opening, everything in between. But because it is the anniversary of the Roswell UFO crash, I said, hey, let's give it a try. Let's watch this. I want to know what you guys think. I did put a poll up over on YouTube. What you believe the Roswell UFO was. What actually crashed in the deserts just outside of Roswell many, many years ago. So yeah, be sure to vote in that. Put it in the chat as well. Speaking of the chat, I do want to say hello to all of you guys out there. Thank you so much for being here. All of our regulars, all of our new people. Hello to all of you over on Twitter. If you are watching on Twitter, hop on over to YouTube. Join us over on YouTube where you can interact with us in the live chat. We'd love to have you over here right on YouTube. So just look for the Ryan Sprague YouTube channel and it should be the live stream premiering right now for you. Carlos Dangerous Fella reposted this stream. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, guys, if you are on Twitter, go ahead and celebrate World UFO Day. Do hashtag World UFO Day. Share the link to this live stream right now and let's get this party started and let's watch Roswell Mysteries Decoded. But before we do that, I curated, created, and semi-host a free virtual conference called Anomicon. And this will be taking place this year on September 20th, right here on YouTube. It is completely free. We have speakers that speak on all things paranormal, supernatural, UFOs, aliens, cryptids, ghosts, you name it. We have experts in these fields of study and research who are going to give free presentations to all of you to watch. So you can learn more about that at anomicon.com. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because tonight we are doing a fundraiser for that as well. So the super chat and super stickers will be open all night for you guys. If you want to help fund our free virtual conference, it is free for you to watch, but it is not free for us to create. There's many unforeseen costs that go into the streaming platform that we use, paying our speakers, hiring our artists for our music, our animations, our artwork, everything in between. So every penny that you donate tonight will be going towards funding Anomicon 2025. We also have PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee available as well. You'll see QR codes up on the screen as you see right now. You can go ahead and scan those and donate there. If you don't have a phone to scan the QR codes, we have links in the show notes where you can donate to those as well. I do want to give a special thoughts and prayers to our very good buddy and colleague, Rob Christofferson, who I've been told in the chat had to have an operation today. For those of you who don't know, Rob Christofferson hosted the Our Strange Skies podcast, probably my favorite UFO podcast of all time. Yes, more than my own. And Rob has been on the show many, many times in the past. This man is an encyclopedia of UFO knowledge. And he also does the graphic novel or comic book, Welcome UFO People. So you can go ahead and search for that as well. But yeah, I was told that Rob had an operation today. So Rob, if you are recovering right now or anything, buddy, I just wanted to send our love and thoughts your way, my man. Everyone in the chat feels the same. But without further ado, let us celebrate World UFO Day and let's start watching Roswell Mysteries Decoded. Now, I might stop this a couple times, guys, so I apologize in advance, but this is kind of an opportunity to get the behind the scenes look at stuff. So there might be some moments where I feel compelled to stop and maybe explain something or give you a fun little anecdote or story about what had been filmed and what didn't make it into the show. But I'm going to be honest, I haven't watched this in a really, really long time. So my memory about all of this may be a bit more fuzzy than I had hoped for, but we'll see. I'm sure my memory will get re-triggered as this thing goes on as well. But yeah, be sure to put any questions or comments in the chat and we'll try to get to those as well. Super chat is best. We'll definitely get those and you'll also be helping us and everything we do here. What year did this come out, Trish said? This would have been, oh gosh, I want to say, I can look it up really quick actually. Roswell Mysteries Decoded. It feels like a decade ago, but this would have been, wow, 2019. 2019. That doesn't seem like a long time ago, but it does now. It certainly does now. So yeah. Daniel says, I think it came out years ago, a couple years ago. Yeah, 2019. It did. We did an updated version a couple years later during COVID. And we actually interviewed new people, new witnesses, and brought new evidence forward. Now we will be watching the original version tonight. This is as uh slapped together as this is, guys. We're streaming a version from YouTube. I don't even have the official version, and it was basically my show, but such is Hollywood, such is the entertainment industry. But yeah, commentary by Ryan. Nice. I hope, man. I hope people want to listen to me. Yeah. I saw something in here that I wanted to bring up. Any suggestions on UFO sites I need to go to in the Southwest? Jay Allen asks. I'll let Suzanne take care of that one. Suzanne is in the chat, guys. She's our incredible moderator. She often comes on the live streams on Sundays as well. I never really asked her what her thoughts are on what Roswell was. It's got me thinking, but I'll leave that for now. Let's get to it. Let's get to the special. Again, guys, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, this might get taken down as we're streaming. So if that's the case, I apologize in advance, but it's a risk we're willing to take here tonight. But let's go ahead and start the show. And yeah, you'll see my little head in a bubble during this thing, and I'll try to interject when I can. So let's see. Bear with me here, as technology is not really my forte, but I will try my best to get this thing going properly. Add to stage. Make me a little bubble. Ooh, magic. God bless technology. All right, guys, here we go with Roswell Mysteries Decoded.
July 8th, 1947. A day that launched what some claim is the greatest government conspiracy of all time. In Roswell, New Mexico, the U.S. Army Air Force announces the capture of a flying saucer. Within hours, the military report is changed. The debris was just a weather balloon. But instead of settling the issue, questions about the Roswell incident only grow deeper. Stories of a military cover-up of an alleged UFO spread across the world. Now, 70 years later, a scientist from Roswell claims to have found remains of the actual craft, possible proof that this ship was not from this planet. Is this finally evidence that Earth has been visited by extraterrestrials, or just another silly conspiracy theory? My name is Jennifer Marshall. I served in the United States Navy for 5 years. I've been working as an investigator in some capacity since 2014. As a veteran, I'm drawn to mysteries alleging some type of government cover-up or conspiracy. I need to know the facts. The problem with claims of UFO encounters is that there's rarely any evidence to investigate. But this one may be different. When leading UFO journalist Ryan Sprague contacted me with what sounds like a
leading
compelling new
UFO
lead in the
journalist,
Roswell
that's
mystery,
extremely
it was an
complimentary.
investigative
but no.
opportunity I just couldn't pass up. I've agreed to help Ryan look into this, but I plan to examine the alleged evidence very closely. Ryan?
Hey, Jennifer.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
Yeah.
For me, this is a very personal journey. When I was a teenager, I had a UFO sighting that I could not explain, and it scared the hell out of me. I've been searching for answers ever since. I have traveled all over the country questioning people about UFOs, conspiracies, cover-ups. We have a gentleman who has materials from the Roswell UFO crash.
What kind of materials?
Metals, physical evidence that we can look at. What's really interesting is the guy we're going to be talking to, Frank Kimbler. He's looked at aerial photos, and he was able to triangulate where the exact crash site was. It's been clouded in secrecy for a really long time, but I think we actually know the impact site of where this happened.
I can tell that Ryan is super enthusiastic about the topic, but sometimes when people want something to be true, they convince themselves of evidence that just isn't there.
Okay, hold your horses there, Miss Marshall. Um, I have never had a belief in the Roswell UFO crash because the Roswell UFO crash happened. There's no debate there. I also have never bought into any specific explanation for the Roswell UFO crash. So a little presumptuous on her part, but I understand. She was just meeting me. This is like our first meeting together. You can see she has a burrito there. Best burrito I've ever had. God bless this place in Roswell, the Cowboy Diner, I think it was called. They had some sick food. And the other fun thing about this scene as it's playing out, guys, is that like we're a TV show. We obviously had cameramen and lighting and a director and stuff like that in there. So basically, we roll up into this diner. They didn't close it down. It had all these regulars that were at this diner every day, truckers, locals, stuff like that. And all of a sudden, we just roll up and start filming in there. It was so difficult to ask them all to kind of just like act natural when you've got like an entire television crew in there. But to be honest, they're in Roswell, New Mexico. They're probably used to this stuff at this point. They're probably sick of it. But everyone was extremely nice and accommodating, and the wait staff was awesome and told us some stories themselves, of their friends and family who may have been a part of that recovery. That's a story for another time. But yes, best burritos I've ever had, Roswell, New Mexico. But let's get back to the show.
I'm skeptical. It's been a long time.
I understand that. You would think that by now everything would be gone.
Right.
But this guy, he's been out there for 9 years on his hands and knees looking at this crash site. I'm out here to find the truth. Do I believe it's possible aliens visited us in 47? Sure. I'm the kind of person who I'll believe it until you can prove to me that it's not real, that it didn't happen.
I'm the opposite. Show me the proof, show me the evidence, and I'll believe it.
Jen's a little skeptical of the crash story, but that's okay. I think once she learns the facts, she'll see that the official story, it just doesn't add up. I want to give you a tour, and then I want to go meet Frank.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Cool. Jennifer, this is like the Mecca for us UFO researchers. This is the UFO museum on your right here.
Okay.
It's astounding.
There's a lot of kitsch, a lot of green-headed alien type stuff, a lot of touristy type memorabilia, but there's also a great collection of documents and photographs, so we're excited to see what we uncover here.
The Roswell incident has been at the epicenter of all UFO discussions for a very long time. It begins when a sheep rancher, Mac Brazel, finds unusual debris on the ranch. When he tells authorities that it looks like a crash site, the nearby airbase sends Major Jesse Marcel to investigate. Based on Marcel's findings, the Army Air Force issues a press release to the local newspaper, the Roswell Daily Record, announcing the recovery of a UFO. But the next day, the Army Air Force, under the orders of General Roger Ramey, changes the story, claiming the first report was wrong. The debris was just a weather balloon. Okay, so I got to stop it right here. If you've never been to the International UFO Museum in Roswell, guys, you have to go. Suzanne, have you been there? She's nodding her head. Yeah, I thought you had. And if you get the opportunity, go into the research room. It is incredible. I mean, they have every UFO book, every UFO magazine, journal that you can possibly think of. It was just a ufologist's dream. And I will say, there are things in that museum, affidavits and sworn testimonies that I had never seen before. or read about in books or heard about in documentaries. It's just, you have to go. You have to go. There's something to be said about getting your feet on the ground and going and investigating these things. And because of this television show, I had the resources to actually do that. So I felt incredibly thankful. This was my second time going to the International UFO Museum. I actually went many years earlier with an acting troupe back in my acting days, and we all got one wish of where we wanted to go, like a dream bucket list place to go. And we happened to be in New Mexico, and I said, Roswell. And I brought my entire cast and crew to the International Museum. And just like Jennifer, they were very skeptical. But by the end of going through that museum, they were all hooked, and they were all convinced that something truly incredible happened there. So it was an awesome time. I got a tattoo at a shack in the middle of the desert, had a big alien head on the front of this shack. And I said, I got to go there. I got to go there. And that's when I got my first ever tattoo. You can't really see it here, but it's a question mark. And yeah, that is a permanent souvenir that I will always hold sacred from Roswell, New Mexico. And back to the show.
This affidavit from a woman that worked at Los Alamos is really intriguing. It says when she contacted her boss about this, she was told her clearance wasn't high enough. Why would a clearance matter if it was just a weather balloon?
Good question, Jennifer.
My dad and brother both ran the paper before me, so it's in my blood. I grew up, coming here. And
do you have any personal things that are connected to Roswell or the UFO phenomenon that you've personally been privy to?
My dad was in the military. He was a no-nonsense business kind of guy. And he told me that he knew the Ballards who had the funeral home. That night, they were asked to come with 4 small coffins.
Small coffins, like
child-sized coffins.
Child-size.
And my dad also confirmed that. They were told to leave them at the base, to not go into the base.
And there was no explanation given as to why there would be a need for 4 child-sized caskets at a military base?
My dad said it was really odd, and he wondered about it too at the time. But the cover-up seems to be very effective.
Right, and you have so many people like him coming forward and saying, I was ordered to do this. I didn't ask questions. They may not even have known what they were actually doing there.
Right. Can you imagine being in 1947 and in the military? You didn't question things. You kind of did what you were told. You weren't encouraged to question or use critical thinking skills.
It's really eye-opening to me. Barbara's story about the caskets, I thought she was credible, but so far, this is all second or third-hand information.
Our AAF captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region. What I find really interesting here is they're talking to the Wilmots, who actually had UFO sightings a week prior. The Wilmots, ranchers in the area, said they saw a UFO traveling at an estimated 400 to 500 miles per hour.
So this is from an article that says, harassed rancher who located saucer, sorry he talked about it. Brazel said that he had previously found 2 weather observation balloons on the ranch, but that what he found this time did not in any way resemble either of these. And I think that's really telling because he's in the middle of nowhere. They send 2 of these up a day. Clearly he's used to seeing what they are.
It's same with Major Jesse Marcel. Both of these individuals know what a weather balloon looks like. Marcel in these press photos, have you seen them? There's Marcel with the weather balloon.
Even look at his face though. Even look at his face.
Yeah.
His face is like, are you kidding me?
Like, you're making me do this? Really? Here's General Ramey. This is really interesting. This paper in his hand. With your experience, what would a general be holding right there in reference to all this?
I mean, if they're talking about a downed weather balloon, clearly he's well experienced in weather balloons and weather balloons going down.
Look at this one. So we were able to zoom
close.
in. Yeah. Can you decipher any of that? It could be like a very big piece of evidence in this entire thing.
If we could get a higher resolution photograph, I know some really great Photo analysts, there's no reason that they shouldn't be able to decipher at least some of what's on this photo. Maybe not everything.
Absolutely. I'm continuing to search for the truth. I can't wait to meet Frank Kimbler. I want to know how Frank located the actual crash site. I want to know how he found the metals, if they've been analyzed or examined yet even. I can't even say how exciting it is to know that I'm going to be able to touch these materials that possibly could be from another world. Okay. Commercial break. Couple things I want to unpack there. The memo that was in Ramey's hand. We were able to get it analyzed. You'll see that coming up. And what it said was pretty interesting. And now we're heading to meet Frank Kimbler at the Roswell Institute where he teaches geology, and we are going to touch what Frank believes were metals left behind by the craft from the Roswell UFO crash. I will say this. I was nervous as hell doing this because, it's fun. It's exciting. I'm like, oh, this will be so good for the show. But like, end of the day, it is possible that whatever we are about to look at, and you will see, came from a craft of unknown origin. And that hit me as I entered that room to meet Frank, as you will see. So, yeah. This was awesome. All right. Happy World UFO Day, guys. If you're just joining us, we are watching my 1 hour special Roswell Mysteries Decoded. Audrey, happy birthday. A very happy birthday to Audrey. It's her birthday today. So sending her our very best. To everyone else in the chat, hello, good to see you guys. We're going through the special right now. We're about to continue. If you want to help out the show and support Anomicon, our super chat and super stickers are open all night. So is our QR codes and links for PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee. This is kind of a fun fundraiser we're doing for Anomicon and to celebrate World UFO Day and the anniversary of the Roswell UFO incident. So let's get back to it, guys. Let's get back to Roswell Mysteries Decoded. We're about to meet geologist Frank Kimbler, who believes he has materials from the Roswell UFO crash. When I was 12, I was on a weekend getaway with my parents, and I was fishing off a dock. It just turned dark, and I was by myself. I remember as I was reeling my line in, I saw these lights in the water. Naturally, I look up, and I saw the white lights, and they were in like a triangular formation, and there was like a hazy red light in the center of it. I couldn't see any like machinery, any structure to it, but I couldn't see anything behind it. Stars, the moon, nothing. And it was just hovering there above me, just completely silent. All I could hear was the water. I couldn't move. I was terrified.
How long was it there for?
A minute tops, but it felt like forever. My father, actually, I started yelling for him. And as he's coming out, the thing started coasting over the water. And then it just disappeared.
And what did your dad say?
He told me that it was a plane, but he did not see that thing hovering right above me. He didn't know that it was silent. None of that. So, to me, even at 12 years old, I knew that was not a plane.
And so I guess for months after this and years after this, you kind of wondered what else it could be?
I did look into if there were any military bases nearby at the time. I did contact the local FAA to see if anything weird had been in the sky that night. They returned nothing. I feared that people might think I'm crazy. And I didn't tell anyone about this until I was in college. I know witness testimony can't be taken as actual evidence. I completely understand that. But I personally, I can't discredit that. I can't.
Is there evidence that UFOs visited Roswell? It's time to meet a man who claims he has the proof.
Right.
Because this case is 70 years old and this is potentially new evidence, it is very exciting.
Hey.
So I do want to talk to Frank, and I want to find out, the conditions under which he collected the evidence.
Yeah.
Jennifer.
Jennifer, nice to meet you, Jennifer.
Pleasure to meet you. The fact that he's a science teacher, it means that he has definitely more experience and education than the average person who would have found this material. However, I need to look at everything and see it from start to finish. I just can't take on his excitement because then I wouldn't be doing my job.
So what I used to teach school with here, it's called an augmented reality sandbox.
Oh, this was
And
so cool.
This is a nice digital representation of the crash site. And you can make it rain simply by holding your hand over the top of it like this. You can make it rain, so you can actually get a picture of how the water actually rolls off the land and where it accumulates, which is what I use to help locate some of the artifacts.
So utilizing this, can you explain the crash site to us?
Oh, absolutely. The object came in out this way, and it came in this direction, and it made what's referred to as a furrow. It spread out kind of in a V shape. And then, according to the eyewitness accounts, there was also a gouge mark. And it's kind of an interesting thing because the metal artifacts that I have found seem to be centered right on the area where the gouge mark is.
How big was this crash site?
This area is probably maybe twice the size of a football field. But the debris was scattered for a distance of more than half a mile.
Do you still have the aerial photos that you used in your research?
Yeah.
The debris stretched over a mile. That shows how forceful of an impact and speed in which this thing hit the ground. So that to me does not sound like a weather balloon slowly descending to the ground. I'm sorry. I mean, there was apparently an explosion. There was a deep impact where the fact that, he showed the fork. Now, there have been people who've said that 2 craft actually crashed. I don't believe that. I do not believe that. These are Pentagon people who've said that. I actually don't believe that. I believe it was one object and it split in 2 and went down those 2 forks in the sand, basically, because the impact was so big and the debris stretched so far. But that's just me. But yeah, incredible. And this augmented sandbox is just so cool. This is how Frank was able to kind of do this. But that's not all. We'll see how he actually triangulated the area where he believed the impact site was. Give this a watch.
They're right over here. Let's cut the lights. This image right here is from 1954. It's the first aerial photo I could find of this area after 1947. There's something that I kind of honed in on in this picture pretty fast, and you'll notice this white area right here. There are a series of steps. Can you see the little white steps? The little steps. I refer to them as dozer tracks. It looks like the sharp edges of where bulldozers have come in and sort of scraped the land. The military was cleaning the area up, and they were very systematic. Now, if you come over here on the 1946 picture, that line is gone. So this has been changed between them. The damage that was done to the area happened after 46. Now, what happened to the land between 1946 and 1954? I have actually found metallic artifacts within this area and along the edges of those dozer tracks, small pieces of material.
Frank, I am dying to see the metal.
Inside this container, they are the material that I picked up out at the debris field. You can see how they're all twisted and mangled up. These specimens are untested, but these are some of the things that I would like to have some really good science done on these things.
Would you mind if we held them?
It's fine. Go ahead.
Sure.
Okay. You're not going to get some kind of disease off of them or anything.
Okay. So, these look so simplistic on camera, guys, but I will tell you, touching these things, it was so light, yet so durable, and up close, you can sort of see it there in Jennifer's hand. It almost looked like there were scorch marks on these things. They were bent back in a way that only a huge huge amount of force could do. I mean, you couldn't bend this thing to save your life, yet metal on it was curled back, which would also infer that maybe there was a high temperature, fire, explosion, just one man, two man, and one woman's opinion, as you'll see as this scene sort of closes out. But yeah, touching these things with our bare hands, mind you, was a little creepy. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Because we will get these metals tested. This one to me is interesting. It looks like it's almost curled back. It's bent.
When metals are subjected to a lot of stress, they fold and bend and twist around.
Bingo.
And not only that, they usually end up being small pieces with jagged edges, or the edges might be melted.
It seems to fit a scenario that something crashed at a high speed.
And that is the kind of thinking that I went on as well.
This is insanely light and very, very strong.
You're right. It's incredibly strong for its size. There was some analytical work that was done up in Canada. And he says, well, we found 3% molybdenum. And I'm going, oh my gosh.
What does that signify?
That's unusual. It's essentially impossible with current technology to have 3% molybdenum in those aluminum alloys. And that's why we need to have more testing done on them.
We can do that. We can make some calls, get you some names, people who are very well versed in metallurgy, who are working in the aerospace industry.
I want to make sure that if somebody says that this is an extraterrestrial alloy, that the rest of the world is going to believe it. If they come back and say, oh, it's Mr. Rancher's beer can, then I'll accept that as the bona fide truth. Something happened out there, and I want nothing but the pure truth.
Well, I can tell you that's what we want to.
My gosh, if it comes out to be of extraterrestrial origin, we're going to have something that's world history making.
Thank you, Frank.
You're welcome.
We have our mission. It's time to get this metal tested and extract the truth.
Mission. Choose 37. All right, I want to look at several of these photos. Look at that. It looks like they made this thing yesterday.
The way that the pieces are cut up is weird to me too, because it looks like the pieces, they're so symmetrical. If they were smaller pieces, I could understand why he could mistake it for a weather balloon, but they're so symmetrical. If there was some sort of crash landing, you would assume that, you know, the pieces would be small.
Let's look at this one.
General Ramey, I can't stop thinking about this photo. Can you zoom in on the memo? You know, given that this was taken in 1947, we can't really see what's on it. The lighting isn't very good. It's kind of blurry. But now we have photo analysis techniques that didn't exist then. So I'm hoping that we will be able to evaluate this and actually see what's on it, not just words, but maybe even complete sentences. Because if we can ascertain exactly what's on the memo, then it blows everything wide open. I did some digging, and there is a copy of the original negative at the University of Texas at Arlington.
Do you think that's something you could get your hands on?
If it exists, I can get it.
Hell yeah,
I want to go back
Jennifer.
to this photo for a sec. That look on his face, I cannot get that out of my head. That "are you kidding me" look. I was able to get in touch with his granddaughter, Denise, Marcel. I wanted to get to know that man a lot better. For 30 years, Jesse Marcel Sr. kept quiet about what he actually found at the Roswell crash site. When he came forward in 1978, his claim that the debris seemed otherworldly was confirmed by his son, Jesse Marcel Jr.
Since 1947, I saw this strange material, not of earthly manufacture. It made me feel that we're not alone, that there's others out there. This is something that came from outer space.
Today, Denise Marcel is the keeper of the family legacy.
My grandfather was Major Jesse Marcel Sr. He was the intelligence officer on the 509th Roswell base during 1947. That is when the world changed, I would say, at that moment. My grandfather was on the base when he received a call from Sheriff Wilcox, who said that he had a rancher by the name of Mac Brazel down there saying that he had found some really odd material on his property.
Your grandfather found the wreckage, he got it into his car, and he was so intrigued, enthralled by what he'd found that he wanted to stop home and show this to his wife and to his son.
My dad and my grandmother were asleep. It was probably around 12 o'clock at that night.
So how old would your father have been at this point?
He was just about to turn 11 years old. My dad recalls when he went into the kitchen, he said, why are you waking me up to show me all of this junk? But he also, at the same time, he could see that my grandfather, I guess, was extremely, extremely excited about what he saw. He's like, I believe this is probably pieces from a flying saucer. My dad, one of his things was he couldn't believe how light the metal was. And it was like, he said, about as thin as tinfoil. He got the impression.
How light the metal was, as thin as tinfoil. Sounds a lot like the stuff we had our fingers on, doesn't it? Just saying. Just saying. This was incredible, interviewing one of the descendants of the Marcel family. The keeper of the legacy, I think I called it. Oh, Ryan. But yeah, this was an interview I will never, ever forget. I've had the pleasure of going on to do an interview on the podcast here with Denise as well as a panel discussion at AlienCon in Los Angeles. Just an incredible person, and still trying to get to the bottom of what her grandfather had been a part of, and her great grandfather as well. Just incredible stuff. I just feel so lucky. Let's keep going.
Impression that if you dropped it, it would probably just flutter down kind of like a feather.
Wow. All right, Denise, so I want to take a look at these. So we have your grandfather right here in the room with the supposed wreckage.
This is clearly a weather observation balloon. I can say with absolute certainty, this is not what my grandfather found. They pre-positioned a weather balloon in General Ramey's office for him to take photographs with. And there wouldn't have been any reason to fly this out to Fort Worth to show them this. I mean, come on. Yeah. That makes absolutely no sense.
Look at this expression. Yeah. You know, he's really showing his emotions in here.
As I've gotten older, my opinions change. I always thought that was a like, you got to be kidding me kind of look. But now I think there is some fear in his eyes there. What did I just get involved in?
What did your family just get involved in?
Right. What did I just show my son and my wife? I mean, in the course of a couple of days, his whole world was turned upside down. He always said, you know, I hope before I die that the truth is going to come out. And that didn't happen.
Here we go, baby. Crash
so
site.
You've been waiting for this for years.
This is a dream come true for any UFO researcher. No matter where you land on the Roswell case, being out here and going to the actual presumed crash site is so exciting. I mean, I've interviewed hundreds of people who've seen UFOs, who were directly involved with this incident. I have no doubt something truly powerful and impactful happened to these people. I don't know. What do you make of that?
So I do think that empathy is important. But if somebody tells me a story and they're deeply affected by it, that's nice, but I still need to see evidence.
But at the same time, when you have Jesse Marcel bringing these pieces home to show his son, to show his wife, this material comes from an alien spacecraft. What do you make of something like that?
To me, he already had a preconceived notion of what it was. With him being in the military, he knows that the U.S. constantly has secret things that they're working on. That's why we have clearances. And for him to kind of just jump to that conclusion, that also makes me question where he's coming from and what he's ultimately trying to prove or ultimately trying to claim. Mm-hmm. If the aliens come for you today, are you ready?
I'm ready. I've been ready since age 12. Yeah, so this is allegedly the crash site.
I'm anxious to see what's over the hillside.
This is a moment I will never forget. Being in this location, looking out over those arroyos, and having my feet on the ground where a possible UFO had crashed is just a memory I will hold dear for the rest of my life. No matter what crashed, no matter what anyone thinks of UFOs, their existence, their non existence, the lies, the truths, this moment will stick with me for the rest of my life. And I just feel so thankful for that. I mean, I'm sort of seeing what Frank is talking about here. I see it. I can see, almost where this road leads, you can see where it comes out here.
But if you look at all this land, right? He's talking about if it was piloted, then they specifically chose this arroyo because they could kind of come down this way. But this isn't mountainous. This is pretty flat. So if you look at everything, there's plenty of safe places to land if it was, in fact, a piloted craft of some sort. I think I hear something. Places to land.
What?
I think I hear something.
It must be Frank.
He said he's going to bring his son today. Hey, Frank.
Hey, how's it going?
How's it going?
Hey, pretty good.
Sheldon.
So this is it, man.
This is where it happened, right here.
It is so desolate out here.
This place is kind of eerie because it's so quiet.
That's the feeling I got. I mean, Mac Brazel, his sheep wouldn't come anywhere near this area that morning. Am I right?
That is, as a matter of fact, the sheep wouldn't cross this area for, 6 months or a year. They would not even come into this area, and all the animals stayed away from it. What I believe happened here was in 1947, an extraterrestrial craft came in. They had some kind of mechanical problems, or maybe they got struck by lightning. Maybe it was interference with radar. Something caused them to lose control of their craft, and they came to this very spot and crashed here. Right here is some of the places where I'd found the material, where it had washed down from the hill slopes and against the sides and all down into this sinkhole area, concentrated by the action of erosion.
This is where the runoff came down. So we're talking the impact site. How far would you say up this way that would be?
Okay, so the impact site started basically right at the base of that little hill right there, and it came down this way. It's the furrow, the gouge mark left by the object that was dragging across the ground.
Being here and seeing the actual site, seeing the levels, seeing how everything runs down here, it makes complete sense to me what Frank has come up with. It's perfectly logical.
So it is this arroyo?
Yes, it's this one right here. This is the one where it came in and left the gouge mark. So it skipped the hillside.
You know, I was really skeptical when we first came out, and I expected to see a place where humans were and that you would see evidence of humans. You would see trash, but now that I've been out here, there's no trash. There's no proof that anybody's been out here. So it's really surprising that Frank found metal here.
Okay, let's talk about that for a moment. I'm so happy that Jennifer brought that up. Now, a lot of people have said that these lightweight metals that Frank has found, that they come from like soda cans, which is asinine to think that. He has found trash out there on the surface and, got those tested, and yeah, they came back as, just aluminum cans. That happens all the time. However, these metals that we're talking about were under the ground. So due to erosion and stuff like that, these were on the surface at one point, or, pretty close to below. And then just as the years went on, got deeper and deeper and deeper. So it is possible that these things were overlooked and they had been there for a really long time. And it's so good to hear Jennifer saying, like, yeah, the metals, if they were dug up here, shouldn't have been there. So we're getting her. She's coming around, guys. Will she keep going? Let's see.
This is like the perfect area, and you'll hear a sounds like this when you run across a piece of metal, and it'll find stuff that's really, really tiny.
Now, is it possible that you said that it'll search 3 feet deep? Is it possible that over 70 years, something would be more than 3 feet down, something of that weight and material?
No, the material is very thin and very lightweight, and unlike gold or iron, it doesn't sink. It works its way to the surface.
So, when your dad, when he first brought you out here, and he said, we're going to go out and metal detect, and we're looking for alien material, did you think it was nuts?
I had heard the stories of Roswell and the crash site and all that, and him being of a fairly scientific background, that's pretty interesting for him.
This place is in the middle of nowhere. It's desolate. It's a wasteland. There's no reason for anything to be out here, yet we've found metal. I will say this, the universe is far too large for us to be the only intelligent species. It's entirely possible that something could have happened out here.
I think it's undeniable that something happened, whether it was a weather balloon or a secret aircraft or a UFO. I'm a veteran. I tend to believe that the military has a lot of things that they cover up, and I'm more believing that it was something that the general public didn't know about rather than a UFO from outer space.
Okay.
One thing that I repeatedly see in my research is a project called Project Mogul. It was actually a program that was highly classified at the time. So I've reached out to Alejandro Rojas. He's a journalist with a lot of experience researching UFOs. What can you tell me about Project Mogul?
Project Mogul was a top secret project that started in 1947 by the Army Air Force. They were sending microphones into the atmosphere using balloons similar to weather balloons so they could listen for seismic waves. And these waves gave them information about Soviet nuclear testing.
So is what we see in these photographs a Project Mogul balloon?
So what was found in Roswell is not what's in those images. Those images were a cover-up.
Hello to Alejandro. So good to see him in here. I totally forgot he was in this. That's so awesome. Yeah, here we go with the Project Mogul explanation. So many holes in this story with Project Mogul. I actually did a Roswell omnibus today, guys, on the podcast and right here on YouTube, where I collected every episode I've ever done of the podcast that has Roswell. And we spoke to oh my gosh, who was it? It wasn't Frank Kimbler. Somebody remind me in the chat who it was who wrote the book about June Crane. But anyways, we talked to a couple researchers about this, and they flat out said this was not Project Mogul. Like it just wasn't. It wasn't. It doesn't explain the crash test dummy thing that they tried to say, or the alien bodies. It doesn't account for the types of metals that were actually found, and that Jesse Marcel touched. What these officers in this image right now are holding is probably a weather balloon, but this was not what they found out there in the desert. It just simply was not. It was a cover-up, as Alejandro said.
We were told that the Roswell Funeral Home was asked to bring 4 child-sized caskets to the airbase. What do you think about reports that bodies were found at the crash site?
The second report that they did on the Roswell incident claims that people saw bodies, but that these weren't aliens. They were crash test dummies that they were dropping out of airplanes. However, the project where they were dropping these dummies didn't happen until the late 50s, which is well after the Roswell incident, which we all know happened in 1947.
Hello.
Why do you have to stage a photo op? Why do you have to do a report? Why do you have to give an explanation to something if there's really nothing going on?
I agree. And I think what's interesting and really credible is Marcel's testimony himself. Years later, when he talked to UFO researchers, he had felt that the truth would come out at some point, that what they found was not the balloon. It was not Mogul. It was something much, much more mysterious.
Frank has decided to let me get some of the pieces he found at the crash site analyzed, only because I'm bringing them here to Atlas testing labs. These guys should be able to tell us what we're possibly dealing with. Very nice to meet you. Thank you so much for doing this today. All right, this is how it was given to me, so I'm going to hand that over.
Perfect. Alrighty.
What do you think? What kind of tests are you going to be doing with these?
So we'll be testing these for elemental composition. We're going to be running them for aluminum and for moly. Moly is short for molybdenum. And then we're also going to be running them against known aluminum standards, a 3000 series, to basically see if it corresponds with anything like that.
Okay, so we're looking at 2 tests.
Correct. So for the test, basically, we're going to have to cut your sample down to size, and then we're going to use acid to dissolve it and turn it into a solution. And then we're going to be able to run it through the ICP, and that is going to then give us whatever the elemental constituents are.
Okay. So, there's been a lot of talk about when you get these types of metals tested, especially pieces this small. And when you're doing these types of tests, you literally have to destroy the piece, which is heartbreaking. But the only reason Frank agreed to let us do this, how it's dissolved into acid, and then they do the analyzation and find out what the components are, is that Frank had a collection of these things in a vault somewhere. So, even if we got some tested and had to destroy them in the process, there were more. He was never willing to give up everything. So we have to thank him for letting us take some of these pieces and literally destroy them for science to try to figure out what this stuff was. So, yeah, special shout out to Frank Kimbler. He was integral to this investigation. And we're about to put these things under the test and see what happens.
So when Major Jesse Marcel was flown to Fort Worth, he was asked to do a photo op with the remnants of what was discovered at the crash site. And in that photo op was Brigadier General Ramey holding a memo that we have yet to have deciphered. So I reached out to Ben Hansen. He is a forensic photo analyst and he previously worked for the FBI.
So Jennifer, as you know, this photo is one of the most iconic pieces of the Roswell puzzle, right?
Absolutely.
The high-res copies that are out there of this negative, of this Ramey memo, we call it, are pretty good in one sense, and in another sense, it's very frustrating because we've kind of reached the limit of where I think we might be able to get with it. So as you can see up here, we have the original full photo. Take a look at the screen there. What we've done is we flipped the whole photo 180. Okay, so you're looking down at it as if you were behind General Ramey's shoulder.
Right.
The second line, I think, is probably the most clear of everything we have in this message, and it's important.
That clearly has 2 letters. So given the context, that I can clearly see F-O-R-T.
Matching that.
Could possibly be an I, but it's not an I because it's Fort. It looks like Fort Worth. Comma. T-E-X.
They're in Fort Worth, Texas.
All right, this is what I've been waiting for.
Okay, so 3 out of your 6 samples were not able to fully dissolve. And when they did dissolve, they basically broke down into some sort of organic-looking material that we are not able to run here at Atlas. We are, strictly a metals lab, and so we're not able to run the organics.
Correct me if I'm wrong. It had elements of metal or alloy or whatnot with an organic as well?
Yes, so it could have been a metal with some sort of film over it, or we definitely don't know.
All of our tests are complete. Ethan is in there right now, crunching the numbers, and soon we're finally going to get our results.
Let's look at one other thing here. On the 3rd line down, okay, if you look right here, now you may not be able to make out the exact words, but do you see any grammatical punctuation there? You don't see a comma, right?
No.
Look right here.
Is that an asterisk or quotation?
Quotation mark. marks.
Okay.
In our modern day, if you put something in quotations, and we do this all the time, right?
Right.
It's what we say when it's ambiguous what the message, like, it's kind of like, I don't really know what to call this. You put quotations around it. Okay, either you're quoting a person, okay, as a fact, this is what they called it,
Right.
or you're saying, I'm not quite sure. As we look now at the individual letters, I see 1, 2, 3,
I see
4.
it. I see it.
What do you see
I
in
see
there?
it. DIS. And it looks like it could be a C or a K. It's disc.
Disc. Disc. Oh man. When Jennifer called me about this, I was just I like flew back in my chair. Now it's in quotation marks. So like Ben said, does that mean they're just quoting somebody or saying it ironically or jokingly? It's possible. I cannot discount that, but the memo says disc. Right? Thirsty says. Whoosh. Crazy. Why would disc be in the memo, Daniel says. Exactly. Exactly. It's curious nonetheless. That's for damn sure.
I see it.
So one of my favorites, if you take a look at this right here, what letter can you see there?
This one?
The next line above it, right there.
I mean, if I had to guess, I would say a V or a Y.
That's exactly what I was thinking. You really have two choices,
Right.
V or Y, okay? The one next to it.
I'm not in the business of guessing, so I
Okay.
have troubles with this. But if somebody said an I,
Okay, I would go with that as well. And as you go along here, we can see, let's say it's a V or a Y, we have an I, we can see individual letters that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6, I'm guessing. Would you go with that?
I would go with that. Gosh,
Do you see what it says?
it looks like it's home.
What is it? What does it say? What does it say? Okay. There we go. Right now, Ethan is in the office, crunching the numbers, getting everything together. He's going to be bringing a few more people into this to look at it. I gave Jennifer a call. I'm hoping she can get here in time to hear the results.
A prior test of these aluminum alloys found impossibly large quantities of molybdenum, suggesting that they may not have been man-made. So the question is, will this new test confirm that the metal is not of this earth?
So you guys brought us 6 pieces. And what we had to do is we had to digest those 6 pieces into a solution using acid. Of the 6, we were able to digest 3 of them completely.
And what does it mean if you're not able to digest a sample?
We couldn't dissolve it and we can't test that.
No, why only 3 of the 6?
There was some kind of organic material in it. Could have been plastic or dirt or any organic material. And because we're a metals testing lab, we really can't test organic materials. So one of the samples, it had 98.6% aluminum in it. We had one other sample that was 92.5% aluminum.
Now, in terms of that one element we were really looking for, the molybdenum, we were told by another lab that it contained 3.0%.
It would be really unusual, to say the least. But we did run for the moly specifically, and that was 0.006%. So again, much lower than the 3% that you were anticipating.
Drastic change.
Yeah.
Okay, not the most flattering image. I stopped it on there. Sorry, Jennifer. I was so disappointed. I'm not gonna lie. When we got that result, I had some frustrations with these tests that were done. People pointed out, like, why didn't they clean the metals and get the organics off of them so that they could fully dissolve them? That's a good question. I will say I was the one to transport the metals and bring them. However, I was not the one to prepare them. that would be the work of the analysts to make sure that the metals were ready to be tested. There was also some issues, as you will see, with the tests themselves. To better understand that, I did an episode somewhat recently with Frank Kimbler about these results. And I would highly suggest going back in the podcast archives to give that a listen, guys, because there were some interesting results that didn't make it into the show just for time limits, and things that were discovered after we had filmed about the test results when talking to Atlas Labs. And then some of those metals would go on to be peer reviewed and tested at other labs, and the results were very interesting. However, at the time of our tests, they did not find that molybdenum in there, which is unfortunate, but we did find extremely high concentrations of other metals, other elements in that, which I'll explain it after. Let's get through the rest of this and we'll take it from there.
That's a huge difference from what we were told.
So I have to admit, I'm really disappointed because when Frank had given us the results from the other lab and said it was 3% molybdenum, we thought, we have something here. So to hear that...
It's disappointing. It's an answer.
And what would be a reason that you would see 3% molybdenum in a metal like that?
Perhaps the wavelengths were just misread by their analytical machine. Basically, the moly wavelength is pretty similar to a few other elements wavelengths. Perhaps that was where the error potentially occurred.
That difference in the molybdenum was kind of what we were really banking on and hoping you guys would find.
So your equipment is standardized to known elements, correct?
Correct.
So if there is an unknown element, you wouldn't even be able to pick it up.
Right. If the machine wasn't standardized to the element, we wouldn't be able to detect it.
But that leaves us with some unanswered questions about those other ones. Well, thank you guys for clarifying a lot of this for us.
It's our pleasure.
I think that we should get back because I got some information from the photo analysis that we should talk about.
Okay.
So when I met with Ben today, unfortunately, we weren't able to see exactly every sentence and every word of the document of the Ramey memo, but we did get some good information out of it.
Okay.
So there were 3 things that definitely stood out. So the first one is location. It clearly says Fort Worth, TEX.
So they were in Fort Worth. That makes sense.
The second one was in quotation marks, and it either says DISC or DISK.
So definitively disc of some sort.
Definitely, but I think that it says something that it was in quotation marks as opposed to without quotation marks.
Yeah.
It's kind of implying we don't know exactly what we found, but this is what it best looks like. The third thing is perhaps the most telling. You can clearly see that it says the word victims.
Victims? Not in quotation marks? That doesn't sound like crash test dummies to me. The United States Air Force many years later, during Roswell case closed, Pentagon press briefing would say there were no bodies found at Roswell. Then why does this Ramey memo have the word victims in it? I don't understand that at all. I don't get it.
So if we go by the report issued by the Air Force in the early 90s, talking about how what happened at Roswell was actually Project Mogul, that doesn't make any sense. There are no victims if you're launching balloons to spy on the Russians.
Thank you,
And I've spoken to so many people who claimed that there were bodies found at the crash site.
Well, the government came back and said, no, if there were bodies, it must have been crash test dummies.
Then why would they need caskets that were child-sized?
Since when do you bury crash test dummies?
Right.
Let's take a look at some of the things that we have.
Okay, so let's look at Marcel. First officer on the crash site. He knew that was not a weather balloon. So, the cover-up started immediately.
Right.
So I keep coming back to these, Jen. Flying discs, saucers. Why would this headline even exist? This was by the military.
Yeah, the headline was given to them.
Yeah.
When we refer back to the crash site, we've got these bulldozer tracks. which doesn't make sense. You don't bring a bulldozer in if it's a weather balloon. You don't bring a bulldozer in if it's a balloon that crashed because of Project Mogul. You just go and pick up the pieces. So the fact that they had a bulldozer going through the area.
Yeah, that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, all of this is way more questions than answers.
I wanted to think this was extraterrestrial. I'll go and believe in it, prove to me it's not. And I think that's kind of what I wanted out of all this, was to get that smoking gun. I thought maybe it would come with the materials.
Right.
The people looking at this case, the older researchers involved, they're frustrated because there's so many dead ends as we found. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the younger generation getting interested in this case, refusing to let it go, and whatever lay at the source of this cover-up, whoever lay at the source of it, I refuse to let it die. They wanted this to go away forever, and I refuse to let that happen.
Absolutely.
This investigation isn't over. In fact, we're only getting started. There's materials that still have to be tested. There's the crash site itself. The possibilities are endless of what could still be out there.
I think the fact that we saw those words in the memo means we're onto something. We have to go back to Roswell. The story of the child-sized caskets has to be pinned down. You know, when we first talked, I had made very clear to you that I needed evidence to determine one way or another. I am confident in saying there was a cover-up of some sort. It was not a weather balloon. It clearly was not Project Mogul. Something else happened. So I think that we can definitively ascertain that there was, in fact, a cover-up. But what exactly they're covering up, it's still not clear.
So where does that leave us?
Like I said, more questions than answers.
Okay. There it is, guys. How do I get back up here? There we go. Roswell Mysteries Decoded. That was a lot of fun. I haven't watched that in a long time. It brought back so many memories, especially being at the crash site, which is a story in its own. Um, we had and this is probably our fault. We had maybe a half tank of gas when we finally got to the crash site, and it started getting dark really quick. And you're in the middle of the desert. There's no streetlights. You have nothing but the moonlight guiding you. And the moon was very cloudy that day. So we had to be very careful to follow behind Frank to get out of there, because if we didn't, we would have gotten lost, is what I'm trying to say. And we would have ran out of gas, and we would have been stuck out there in the desert. And this is a very, very remote area. I cannot tell you how remote this is. It's not off like the road and you go and see, oh, there's the crash site. Also, a lot of people claim to have been to the Roswell crash site because they've seen this plaque. There's a memorial out there that says in 1947 something crashed here. Not true. That plaque, and I'm sorry to tell anyone who's been to that plaque, is like 65 to 70 miles away from where the actual debris and crash site was. And we learned that through Frank and various other UFO researchers who confirmed that with us before we headed out there. So yeah, that's a whole, story in itself. But yeah. This brought back a lot of memories. A lot of people were talking about the metals and the tests that were done. I was very disappointed. Not just in the results, but with the lab itself. Look, they did their job. And who am I? Like, I'm not a metallurgist. I no scientist. I relay stories. That's literally all I do. However, I even said in this, like, more tests needed to be done. Yeah, they did. And Frank would go on to do that with 3 separate labs. And all of them came back anomalous. So why didn't ours? I don't have an answer for you. Ours did come back interesting. I will tell you this. What we discovered in the final test results that conveniently or inconveniently came in after the show had to air was that there was an extremely high amount of, I believe it was either aluminum or iron. I really wish I had the test results with me, guys. I do apologize. But there was such an astronomical high amount of something that we discovered that there is absolutely no way that anything man-made back in 1947 should have that. The metal that we eventually would come to find out and have analyzed, that metal alloy, as it were, it hadn't been created until the past like 10 years. The most highly advanced and sophisticated space shuttles and SpaceX craft and things, aerospace, are using these things now. So why did we find it from metal that was allegedly from 1947? And this also didn't make it into the show, which astounds me. But with these metals that Frank found under the ground at the desert, he also found buttons with these metals, military buttons. We had those dated 1930s to 1950s. 1947 is when Roswell happened. So you're just imagining all these military people out there on their hands and knees picking up every tiny piece of debris out there as instructed. You know, they're bound to forget some, miss some. And I'm sure their military outfits got some wear and tear as they were down there picking these up and whatnot. And it's very possible that one of their buttons popped off and ended up in the ground too. So to coincide those buttons dating back to the 40s that were found with these metals, it goes to show that the military was out there and they were doing something. Why were there bulldozer tracks out there at the crash site? What needed to be bulldozed? Just so many questions. So many questions. I would love to do a part 2 of this episode. Love, love, love it. What did you guys find most interesting or compelling about the investigation? I would love to know. Let me see here. VF is joining us from France. Hello. Is there still a chance to find some scraps near the crash site today? Very good question. Frank is out there every day. And yes, he has found stuff. And it's come back highly anomalous. We did a follow-up episode with Chuck Sukowski, who worked with Frank and had more metals tested. Go back in the archives. You can listen to that. Very compelling what they found. Very, very compelling. I want to go back here in the chat. Let me see here. We had an interesting question. J. Ellen Heineken asked, one thing I've thought about regarding Roswell, could it be some kind of secret precursor to the space program and the occupants were monkeys? Interesting theory. And it actually kind of lines up with what I said, that why were there like aerospace aged, highly advanced metal alloys back in the 40s? Because maybe we had that technology back then. Some secret space program. I don't know. Monkeys, maybe a little bit of a stretch, but there are those very controversial theories out there. One of which was in Annie Jacobson's book about Area 51, and one of which was in Nick Redfern's book, Body Snatchers in the Desert. I have it back here somewhere in my library, where he believes that it might have been Japanese children, actually, that were part of some high altitude test, and they were the bodies that were found. I believe in Annie Jacobson's book, they said that it was possibly Russian children, either deformed children or mentally handicapped. Yeah, there's a lot of different theories out there that would make this thing man-made, which is almost darker if you think about it. That all of this cover-up was because dead children, were used as like test experiments. You know, how high of an altitude can these balloons or craft go before it like kills these children? I don't know. It's almost darker and scarier than thinking it was aliens. So interesting question. Robert's here. Hello to Robert, one of our regulars over on Discord, sending my salutations and gratitude to you, my friend. If the metal was so light in weight, is it possible a heavy windstorm could blow it across the field? Absolutely. That's a really good point. You know, maybe it wasn't so much the impact of like it like crashing and skidding and all that, but that it was so light that the wind would eventually blow it everywhere. So I don't know. That's something we should keep in mind, though. VF asks, how much does it cost to get such an analysis? A lot. Luckily, I was doing this for a television show, so they have the resources to do things like that. But that was the only test we had done for the show. That's the only test we could afford. But Frank would go on to raise funds to get more tests done at other labs. And like I said, you can listen to episodes of the Somewhere in the Skies podcast in the archives about the follow-ups to our tests and what was discovered after that. Pretty interesting. Aluminum wasn't created for years to follow. Exactly, my friend. Exactly. Hello to Jamie. Didn't the military dump loads of scrap metal there after they cleaned up? I've never heard that, but that is interesting. Like maybe almost like the weather balloon photos that were quote unquote staged. Maybe they did go put like weather balloon materials out there as well. I don't know. Interesting theory that would only add fuel to the cover up story. So, that's pretty interesting. Daniel does not buy the human experimentation theory. That's fair. Robert S. Didn't Gary Nolan test some Roswell specimens? I think he did. I know. Oh gosh, why am I? Diana Pasulka. Wow, sorry. I know she went out to a desert with Gary Nolan and they found metal. I don't know if that had to do with Roswell or not. I don't remember, but it's possible. Keep in mind too, like Frank's not the only one out there. Other researchers know exactly where this spot is, and they've done their own sort of investigations and stuff. Many of them have not been public or made their findings public. But Frank's still going out there with his son constantly, and they keep finding things. So it's just fascinating. I know at one point he donated some to the Roswell Museum, which you saw in the special, and they had it under like a super secure like case in the museum, and someone broke in and stole them at one point, which was super disheartening. Was it like vandals who took it, or was it the government? It remains a mystery. It definitely remains a mystery. Robert Chafee, Suzanne, has Ryan covered this case? Easter weekend, Cape Girardeau, 1941. I have not covered the Cape Girardeau case, Robert, but I plan to. Michael Huntington, UFO researcher who's been on the show in the past, he is very, very entrenched in this case, having been born and raised in Cape Girardeau itself. I got to have him on the show to talk about it for sure. It's a very fascinating case and one I think deserves more attention. So stay tuned for that. Hello, Hides and Longgrass. Probe that like button. Yes, guys, if you could hit that like button, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell if you can. Would truly, truly appreciate that. Wow, I'm hiccuping, talking too fast. And if you can, share this with a friend. World UFO Day. Let's celebrate in style. Let's get everyone to come over and watch this. I would truly appreciate that, guys. So thank you, thank you, thank you. This will be your last chance to throw in any super chats or super stickers to help fund Anomicon 2025 coming to you guys September 20th. So you can go ahead and do that now as we begin to close things out. If you have any further questions or comments, put them in right now, and I will be sure to get to those before we close things out. Let me go back up into the chat one more time here. Make sure I did not forget anything. Daniel says, hopefully Frank uncovers some undeniable evidence. Hopefully, my friend. I hope so. Has there been LiDAR scan of the crash site to see if there is a trail where it crashed? I know there had been work on doing something like that, but I'm not sure if it ever came to fruition. But I will look into that, Daniel. That's a really good question. I mean, it's 2025. We should be doing digital archaeology for everything at this point, right? So as to not damage the ground or the possible artifacts that might be down there. Or it could be, like a good precursor and roadmap to where to dig, instead of spending hours, days, months, years like Frank has done to just find these tiny pieces. Maybe we could find the bigger pieces, if there are any. Or are those the ones that the army retrieved? All right, guys. I think that's going to do it. That was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight, watching Roswell Mysteries Decoded. If you'd like to watch more episodes of the show, it is available to stream for free on the CW website in the United States. If you're looking for it outside the United States, just Google, where to stream Mysteries Decoded. There's 2 seasons up right now. I'm being told that the 3rd season, which I will be featured in an episode, should be popping up within the next year or so. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. And yeah, we just dropped, like I mentioned, over an 8-hour-long Roswell omnibus on the YouTube channel right here, and it will be available on the podcast feed tomorrow. So if you want to listen to every single episode of the Somewhere in the Skies podcast that is featured Roswell, that's for you. Your one-stop shop for Roswell as we celebrate the anniversary of this historic event in ufology, and we continue to celebrate World UFO Day today. We don't celebrate privately here. We celebrate publicly, and that's what we're doing tonight. So happy World UFO Day to all of you out there. I think that's gonna do it. I don't think I have anything else to really promote or talk about. We had a brand new episode of the podcast that dropped on Monday. You can go ahead and give that a listen with the one and only Micah Hanks from the Micah Hanks program and the creator of the Debrief, where we broke down the Wall Street Journal articles recently that talked about the Pentagon and UFOs and, the fact that the government faked UFO programs, photos, images, stuff like that as a form of deception, as a form of hazing, as a form of disinformation, and to mask top secret man-made projects. Sound familiar? Oh, man. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun talking to Micah about that. So give that a listen if you can. Be sure to rate and review the Somewhere in the Skies podcast on Apple or Spotify or wherever you can. We truly do appreciate that as well. Happy UFO Day, Ryan. See, Robert says, thank you. Thank you so much, buddy. Right back at you. Thank you as well, Kenzo. Appreciate that. Hello, Stargazer, Hides and Longgrass, Daniel. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight, guys. And that's going to do it. Thank you again for joining us. And thank you, Daniel, so much for the super sticker. Truly do appreciate that, my friend. And Yeah, sorry guys. I'm all distracted because usually Suzanne is in here to do this, but she had to leave early. But I want to thank her for her help tonight and in everything she does for the show. She is invaluable to everything we do here. Hello, Metal Hendrix. Good to see you, my friend, as usual. Cool. Like I said, rate, review, subscribe, like, all that YouTube-y stuff, all that podcast stuff. Appreciate everyone joining us tonight. And we'll see you this Sunday for our live stream where we'll be breaking down all the latest UFO news and have a good conversation with you guys. Some interesting stuff has happened in the past few days. We will cover all of it this Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Turn on notifications. You'll be the first to know and all of that good stuff. Hello, Panda Sarah. So good to see you as well. Thank you so much for being here. Cool. That's going to do it, guys. So I will leave you, as always, with our mantra here, and that is keep your feet on the ground, but never stop searching somewhere in the skies. Happy World UFO Day, and I'll talk to you soon.
There's nothing to hide. There's nothing to hide at all.